Aswangs, night floaters of the Philippines. Dr. Maximo D. Ramos could be described as the father of folklore studies in the Philippines. Educated at home and in the United States, Dr. Ramos realized the standard classification system for folklore motifs based on European folktales did not adequately cover many Filipino beliefs, such as belief in the Aswang, so he decided to set up his own classification system. This video is based on my reading of two of the doctor's many works. 1. The Aswang Complex in Philippine Folklore, and 2. Philippine Demonological Legends and their cultural bearings. Any errors in understanding or interpretation of the doctor's works are entirely my own. Dr. Ramos divided the Aswang complex into 6 different categories. 1. Stories of blood-sucking vampires, which appear in the form of beautiful women. 2. Tales of Viscera suckers, buxom, long-haired women who feed on internal organs. 3. Weird dog stories, although Aswangs were just as likely to transform themselves into pigs as into dogs. 4. Traditional accounts of witches, wicked, spiteful old women, but sometimes wicked, spiteful old men. 5. Reports of ghouls which dig up dead bodies and feed on human flesh. The Burbalangs of Cagayan Sulu fit into this category. 6. Bizarre stories which were impossible to categorize. Another way to explain the main categories are: 1. Blood-sucking vampires. 2. Self-segmenting viscera suckers. 3. Man-eating weird dogs. 4. Evil-eyed witches. 5. Corpse-eating ghouls. Let's flesh these out, pun intended, in a little more detail. Vampire Aswangs manifest as beautiful and mysterious maidens who entice young men to marry them. Over time, the young men fall victim to anemia and die, at which point the Aswang moves to another village, meets another young man, and repeats the process. Unlike European vampires, these Aswangs have long, pointed tongues, like the stinger on a mosquito, which they use to pierce the jugular veins of their victims, to suck their blood. Viscera suckers suck internal organs, not blood. Unknown in European culture, they are common in Asian folklore. In daytime, these Aswangs appear as comely and voluptuous women with long hair. But at night, they split their bodies at the waist, the upper portion flying or gliding through the night, which makes me automatically think of the night floaters. On reaching a house where everyone's asleep, they extend long, thin tongues, shaped like drinking straws, through open windows or holes in the floor or the roof, and suck the guts out of their victims. Weird dogs can manifest as savage and bloodthirsty dogs, but also as boars or large pigs, and even as large cats, a regular goblin zoo. They prowl at night, biting and devouring villagers, and even entering homes to eat crying children. Pregnant women who are out at night must let their hair hang loose if they want to avoid an attack by one of these weird beasts. Ghouls are flesh-eating entities, flesh-eating cryptids with sharp claws, carnal breath, and pointed teeth. They feast on corpses and can smell people who are dying from miles away. Ghouls can appear as humans, but can also cloak themselves in invisibility. They congregate near cemeteries, hiding in the trees until they descend en masse to dig up new graves and eat. In his book Oddities, 1928, British paranormal writer Rupert T. Gould quoted the following account from the 1896 Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bengal regarding a Filipino tribe called the Burbalangs. These Burbalangs are ghouls and must eat human flesh occasionally, or they would die. You can always tell them because the pupils of their eyes are not round, but just narrow slits like those of a cat. They dig open the graves and eat the entrails of the corpses, but in Cagayan the supply is limited, so when they feel the craving for a feed of human flesh, they go away into the grass, and having carefully hidden their bodies, hold their breath and fall into a trance. Their astral bodies are then liberated. They fly away, and entering a house, they enter into the body of one of the occupants and feed on their entrails. The Burbalangs may be heard coming as they make a moaning sound, which is loud at a distance, and dies away to a feeble moan as they approach. When they are near you, the sound of their wings may be heard, and the flashing lights of their eyes can be seen like dancing fireflies in the dark. As described by Gould and by the report's author, Ethelbert Forbes Skirchley, the Burbalangs are a form of ghoul which feast on dead bodies, but which will also attack the living to satisfy their craving for flesh, in this particular case entrails. According to Dr. Ramos, one of the main functions of the Aswang belief is to promote what he labels social control. For example, the threat of the Aswang is used to make children behave, kind of like the threat, "The boogeyman will get you," in Western countries. It's a universal tool for parents. Stories that the Aswang is on the prowl can also be used to protect isolated fields and crops at night, as it makes people stay away, kind of like a cryptid "beware of dog" sign, or "beware of cryptid" sign. Finally, labeling someone an Aswang might make them curb unpleasant and obnoxious behavior. Maybe. But it must have worked enough for Dr. Ramos to mention it. As you can imagine, there are a multitude of stories about the Aswang in its various incarnations. Here's one recorded by Dr. Ramos about the blood-sucking vampire Aswang. As it appears to have been a semi-autobiographical tale, we'll call the hero Max. The year was 1930. Max was a struggling student living in Manila. His main recreation was to go dancing on Friday nights. Now, back in the 30s, dance halls employed taxi dancers, sometimes known as dime a dance girls. Young men could rent dances with these young women by purchasing tickets for a small amount of money, such as a dime. But Max would only dance with one girl, a dark beauty from an obscure village, who always wore a bright red dress. She would hold Max especially tight, her ruby lips pressed against his neck as they moved around the shadowy corners at the edge of the dance floor. Max was bewitched, but she had a disturbing habit. At midnight, she would disappear, only to return in half an hour, freshly made up and ready to dance with Max again. So week after week, Max would go dancing with the mysterious lady in red. He began to lose weight and noticed his complexion was pale, but he put it down to overwork, and every Friday night went to see his taxi dancer. But her mysterious midnight disappearances were annoying, and so one night, Max decided to follow her. The girl left the dance hall and walked up a nearby alley to a small cottage as Max skulked behind her. Light appeared in a window along the side of the cottage, and Max was able to peer into the room through a crack in the blind. He watched surreptitiously as she freshened her lipstick and powdered her nose, and he was beginning to feel like a voyeur. But then the young lady opened her mouth and stuck out her tongue. It was incredibly long and thin and tapered at the end like a syringe. And then Max knew. She was an Aswang and had been drinking his blood. Max never went to the dance hall again. WSJ here. I'm not from the Philippines and claim no knowledge in this area other than what I have read. If you're from the Philippines, please feel free to correct any mistakes. Gently in the comments below. And please share any encounters you've had with the Aswang or any stories that you have heard about them. If you have a story you would like me to share on my channel, please email me at wsjxxx@gmail.com. That's wsjxxx@gmail.com. 3 X's. And please put the word Aswang in the title of the email. If this is your first visit to my channel, my name is Warren and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring cryptids such as the night floaters, werewolves, and black-eyed children. I hope you will consider subscribing. Till midnight. Cheers. Gosh, it's hard to pronounce demonological. I think some minor demon was messing with me. They're still messing with me. Go away.